I'm artist Lillian Gray, and I love teaching art history. Today I want you to meet South African artist Willie Bester. Please note we have two videos on this artist, this one for our younger students and a more in-depth video for our older students. Willie Bester is a respected artist globally. He uses various mediums such as watercolors and oil paints, but he is most known for his intricate, complex collages and metal sculptures. He collects scrap metal and trash to create artworks that tell people's stories. His art is classified as resistance art. That is because Willie Bester stood up against the unjust apartheid system in South Africa. Willie was born in 1956 in a small town in South Africa. Now, 1956 is an important date. It was the time of apartheid in South Africa. Now, apartheid was a system that separated people by race into four racial categories: white people, colored people, black people, and Asians. And this system was super unfair. Let's imagine we split everybody on the planet into different lengths: short people and tall people. Then we make rules saying short people cannot go to the beach. Short people are not allowed to go to good schools. Only tall people are allowed to live in nice houses. And then we make all short people feel ugly and stupid and tell them that they are not allowed to complain. These rules might seem really silly to you, but so is sorting people according to their skin color. We do not get to choose our length when we are born, and in the same way, we do not get to choose our skin color or race. It's not within anybody's power to change this. So, Willie witnessed these silly apartheid rules and violence between the different races in South Africa. He often saw white people being very cruel to people of color. Willie's troubles with race started at birth because he never quite fit into the mold. His father was Xhosa, a black man, and his mother a colored. Back then, it was against the law for people of different races to marry, so he was born a crime. His parents were categorized as a mixed race relationship. They were not allowed to live together. The apartheid government wanted to split the different races, so there was a neighborhood for colored people and a different neighborhood for black people. How crazy is that? Children of color were so poor they didn't have any toys to play with, and as a child, Willie started making cars out of wire. He loved shaping the wire and became good with it. He started selling his wire cars to other children. That was when Willie realized his art could make him money. Of course, there were also poor white children in South Africa at the time, but the big difference is that black people could not just work hard and accumulate wealth. They were kept poor by the system. As a young man, he first joined the army, but later decided to become a full-time artist. During the 1980s, the resistance movement that stood up against apartheid inspired Willie. He wanted to be a part of the movement, a part of the resistance, a part of breaking down apartheid, a part of creating a new, just world. In Cape Town, Bester met many exciting people who opposed the apartheid system and openly criticized the government. This was very unusual at the time. You see, freedom of speech was not allowed in the old South Africa. That meant people could not say how they truly felt about the government. Since Willie couldn't just stand up and shout, "Stop apartheid," without being arrested, he decided to use his art to talk instead. He started creating art showing people how unfair the apartheid government was. Let me explain one of the cornerstones of the apartheid system to you. It was called the Group Areas Act. Now back to my example of people being sorted according to their length. Once we have split the people into two groups, we can then clearly see there are way more short people than all the tall ones. However, remember, we don't want short people to live with tall people. We want tall people to have all the nice houses. So we divide the country into sections. We give a nice large area to all the tall people and the small terrible area to the many short people. And this is what the apartheid government did, but according to people's races. On this map, you can clearly see that only a tiny amount of land was restricted for the other three races of South Africa. The rest was all given to the white people, even though they were the minority in South Africa. So now, what would the government do if people who weren't white were already living in nice areas? Well, the government simply moved them. They would warn them, tell them they could no longer live there, and eventually send bulldozers to their houses and build new neighborhoods for white people. In the artwork Forced Removals, Willie Bester depicts the destruction of District 6 in Cape Town. These removals were usually sudden and violent, with police and soldiers entering the townships. These forced removals were an emotional time for these families, and they were forced to leave their homes with only the possessions they could carry. Townships such as Sophia Town in Johannesburg and District 6 in Cape Town are two examples of flourishing communities that the apartheid government destroyed. Now, how would you feel if the government just came in and bulldozed your house? Willie also wanted to show the world how black people lived in South Africa. He had the idea to collect the rubbish and scrap metal from the streets they lived in to depict their living conditions. So he built collages of townships using trash from the actual townships. He also often pasted words or painted text onto his artwork. Willie loves using found objects such as tin cans, car tires, scrap metal, and road signage. He sources objects from the streets of townships, rural areas, scrap yards, hardware stores, hospitals, and power stations. Did you know that one of the key driving forces behind the apartheid system was money? They needed cheap laborers to work in the mines. White people wanted to keep black people poor and uneducated. Willie has created various artworks depicting this predicament. Now, previously I explained to you the Group Areas Act, where the government forced people that weren't white to go live in specific areas. Now, these homelands did not have a lot of resources, and black men could not find jobs in these areas. They were forced to leave their families behind and go and work in the cities. In the cities, all the men had to live together in horrible conditions, and most of them worked in the mines. They were paid very, very little money and promised a pension once they were retired. This specific artwork done by Willie Bester focuses on one migrant laborer called Kahle. In the middle of the artwork, we see Kahle and his bed being changed into a prison. The bed is connected to a chain with a lock on it, showing how Kahle is a prisoner of the apartheid system. At the top of the artwork, we see all these tins lined up with numbers. This comments on how the apartheid government only saw people as numbers. Kahle worked for years and years in the mines of South Africa, but when he applied for his pension to return back to his family, he was told that he was listed as dead and he was not allowed to get any money. This was often the case with a lot of migrant workers. He never stood a chance of getting retirement with his family in the Transkei, and although the work tells the story of Kahle specifically, this was the sad truth and reality for many black people in South Africa. Another artwork that shows the economic motives behind the apartheid system is this fantasy machine that Willie constructed, that instead of using petrol as fuel, uses poverty to keep it moving. Willie's artworks are complex and tell real-life stories. He often uses cuttings from newspapers and official headlines and quotes. Some recurring elements in Willie's works are bright paint splashes, the use of numbers, tin cans, shoes, road signs, metal plates and frames, wheels and gears. He uses spades to make funky musical instruments, and he often includes guns, bullets, and even bombs in his artwork to depict violence and war. He often made animals out of gears, spanners, and various machine parts. Each animal was a symbol for a specific story he wanted to tell. The horse refers to the story of the Trojan horse in ancient Greece. It represents a nasty trick. Police dogs represents the apartheid government. One of Willie's most famous artworks is Hamba Kahle, which means go gently. It's about a South African freedom fighter, Chris Hani, that was killed. Willie used a bicycle wheel to frame the painting of Hani. He also added various cutouts from the newspaper articles of Hani's death. In the bottom right-hand corner, we see an image of a miner whose eyes are crossed out, showing the fatal record and tragedies that occurred in South African mines. Just above him is an old banknote of South Africa, showing the capitalist motivation behind mining in South Africa and all the suffering it has caused among the black population. At the bottom of the image, we see a tin guitar, and to me this symbolizes a community struggling to find joy under oppression. Above the guitar, we see a yoke. a symbol for the oppression of the people in South Africa. This painting has many symbols, but I would like to point out the symbol for peace, a dove placed over a machine gun. This is one of my favorite art installation pieces by Willie Bester. It's a human sorting machine. It's called Apartheid Laboratory. It's a visual metaphor for how the National Party sorted people in South Africa between 1948 and 1991. It is a fantasy machine constructed from wires, plugs, switches, and wheels, and the purpose of these circuits is to sort people into different racial categories. Each mannequin is inscribed with a number and assigned a specific race. These wooden figures wear chains around their ankles, showing they are bound by birth because of their race. Once each individual has received their classification, they are assigned to the designated educational system for their group. At the bottom of the panel, a gutter catches the lowest racial order, society's refuge, channeling it into a waste bin on the white tiled floor. The clinical condition of the laboratory, the surgical instruments, and drips all work to suggest that this system of racial segregation has scientific grounding. However, the CCTV cameras reveal the system to be far less secure in reality. Government surveillance and police intimidation maintained popular support for apartheid. Willie believes it's essential to keep the memory of apartheid alive so that people can prevent repeating the atrocities that occurred. He says he cannot be quiet and remain silent when he sees wrongdoing. I believe that we must protest against that which is wrong. Willie's story is of a small, impoverished boy raised in an oppressive apartheid system in South Africa. And it shows how this boy finally breaks free and finds his voice through his art. It shows us that art can speak. Art tells us stories, and more importantly, art has the power to change people's minds. Willie's artworks helps us to remember South Africa's dark past under apartheid. It shows us how unfair the system was and prevents us from creating a silly system like that again. His work has severely impacted people's ideas and thoughts and shown them how ridiculous it is to classify people according to skin color. It's important to note that not all white people were pro-apartheid. Some was also opposed to it. But remember, the government at the time owned and controlled the media and drove a propaganda machine, brainwashing people. After apartheid ended, Willie Bester continued to produce artworks. Everybody believed things in South Africa would change for the better after 1994. However, there are still a lot of injustices and inequalities in the new South Africa. Willie continues to expose greed, poverty, and corruption in society and in the government. Today, he is a celebrated artist who has exhibited all across South Africa and globally. Willie has won various awards for his fantastic contribution to protest art. He has also been given an honorary doctorate in art. Currently, Willie Bester lives in Kuilsriver in South Africa with his wife Evelyn and their 3 children. His house is an extraordinary expression of his individualism and artistic abilities. It looks like so much fun to live there. And that's the story of the fantastic South African resistance artist called Willie Bester. You can buy our worksheets on Willie Bester for various ages on our Teachers Pay Teachers store or shop directly on our website. The links are in the description below. I'm artist Lillian Gray, and I hope you enjoyed learning about this vital artist with me. Until next time!